You know how to tell pretty easily if your company is in absolute shambles? Well, you can look at how many whistleblowers you have coming out, and that's exactly what's going on with the studio behind Dragon Age the Veilguard, BioWare, who has had yet another whistleblower come out and send a lot of information over to SmashJT. I'm kind of jealous of his access to all these whistleblowers, and I'd love it if some of them would come to me. I'm kidding, I'm not that big yet. But this most recent whistleblower and the information that he's leaked is pretty damning of the studio, particularly early sales numbers that the game has had over the course of the just over 1 month since the game has been out. As the game did launch on Halloween, and it is currently December 10th, meaning that the game has been out for about 40 days. And the sale numbers are not great. The other thing that this whistleblower managed to do is he managed to report heavily on the internal culture over at BioWare. This is all coming from SmashJT's website, so I'm sure he has a video up on that as well, and you guys should check that out as well, because SmashJT does great videos. So coming from him, exclusive BioWare Insider leaks all Veilguard sales numbers, internal culture war, layoffs incoming. BioWare Insider speaks out, layoffs loom, culture war shifts focus back to gamers. So an anonymous employee at BioWare with a lengthy amount of experience at the studio, who SmashJT was personally able to verify, has come out forward and given him some seriously alarming insights about the company's current state. And inside the message that SmashJT received, it includes information about the internal struggles, widely disappointing sales figure, and a cultural shift aimed at addressing recent failures, with specific numbers included as to the sales that Dragon Age had. Now, apparently, BioWare had an internal number of 10 million total sales in the first 3 months, which is a pretty lofty ideal given the current state of the industry as a whole and the fact that their game didn't look good to begin with. And of course, knowing that we're just a little bit over a month since launch, how close are they to that number? Well, they're only at about 3 million players. Which, while yes, 3 million is technically a third of 10 million, and it is in fact only a third of the way to their 3-month goal, the fact that it slowed down to such a severe extent and game purchases are not linear, it is not like the sale trajectory of a game is a straight line. Instead, it's much more of a very steep curve at first and then it levels out as it goes on. So it's a pretty big concern that if they only have 3 million now, they're definitely not going to be getting 3 million more by the end of December, and they're definitely not getting 3 million more in January. They're going to miss that mark by a long shot. And then just because he wants to keep the insider anonymous, he isn't revealing exact numbers because that could allow for BioWare to find out who possibly said this, as I'm sure they're constantly on board trying to find all of the different leakers. But apparently all of this information has caused a bit of an industry fear around BioWare, as there have been non-stop looming rumors of layoffs coming, which is quite unfortunate, and hopefully, if there are layoffs, they do at least wait until the new year to do them, as it is a pretty shitty thing to do to lay people off just in time for the holiday season. And as it said down here is a direct quote from the email, there's rumors around the office that layoffs are on the horizon. And in a direct quote, there's rumors around the office that layoffs are on the horizon. And the fact that the failure of Veilguard has in fact prompted deep introspection within the company, as the leadership has been enveloped with scrambling to identify and try to address the root causes. You don't need to scramble, you don't need to search. Just go ahead and watch any of our videos. Any video on the topic will give you everything you need to know. The game looks sterile. It doesn't look like Dragon Age. It doesn't feel like Dragon Age. You violate the lore of the world time in and time out again. You completely got rid of any and all character depth from the game, so it's no longer nearly as involved as the rest of the BioWare franchises are. You had developers going on and attacking players and attacking fans of the franchise for not liking the direction this game was going in. You had intersectionality shoved into the game, which most players do not like. Nobody wants to deal with pronouns in their game, and nobody wants to deal with far-left ideology seeping into the game. And before one of you hit me with a stupid straw man, pronouns that I'm referring to are not what you're going to do. When I say I don't want pronouns, I'm not saying I don't want I, you, me, those things, because those are real pronouns. You guys are using pronouns as titles, and that's where the issue is. You don't get to choose those. They're not a title, they are a descriptor. So don't come in here with, you just used a bunch of pronouns in your video, because that is a straw man and a misinterpretation of what I'm trying to say. It's all on the table exactly what they did wrong. They don't need to search. All they need to do is realize, oh shit, we're completely out of touch. But I guess no, to them it's the kids who are wrong. It's pretty obvious to anyone with half a brain to figure out why Veilguard sputtered, but the closer you are to the center, apparently, the more blurry that image gets for some. Now, I won't fault any of the developers who are completely lost in the sauce from not noticing the errors, especially when there is a considered benefit to ignoring these problems. But the people at the higher-ups, the people who are really in charge of stuff, they should be on the lookout for this, and they should have spotted it years ago. And this is also a very valid point. Taking a step back and thinking about this info is just wild. We've gotten to the point in AAA gaming where a game is now selling over 3 million copies and it's still considered a massive failure. That's not very sustainable. And yes, it is a massive issue, given the fact that budgets are just so aggressively bloated. I mean, when a game's budget is more than the GDP of a small island nation, you're doing something entirely wrong with your game design mentality. But what exactly does all of this mean for the new Mass Effect game? Is it a glimmer of hope or more of the same? Well, according to SmashJT's whistleblower, the project is undergoing extreme changes in response to lessons they've learned from Veilguard's shortcomings. Internal documents are reportedly using buzzwords like gamer focus to describe the new direction. But that only works if they actually understand who the gamers are. The big problem that BioWare has is they think the gaming audience is the modern audience and they don't really know the difference. More importantly, if they don't actually know who the target audience is, how can they possibly change things to represent what we want? Now, hopefully, they just create an absolute extreme stereotype of what we are and what we want and do that. Where in reality, we want a little bit more tame stuff, but I'd be totally fine if they went way overboard. And while this all sounds promising on the surface, to ever a hopeful BioWare fan, the insider expressed sincere skepticism about whether these changes would actually truly address the concerns of players, or if it's simply just buzzwords to try to keep pushing the same mentality behind the scenes. And that's most likely what's going to happen. They might get rid of the pronoun selector at the front, but they're still going to find ways to insert all of their ideologies into the game because people like Corinne Bush will never just shut up. If you try to get rid of her ideology in favor of, well, the fact that nobody wants any ideology in their games, she's going to go out and scream oppression. And it appears to be a reaction to what they describe as the culture war swinging, indicating that they are working on a potential shift in priorities within the gaming industry at large. Either that or they're cowering with their tail between their legs in hopes of recuperating a little bit of strength so that next time they come out swinging twice as hard as they started out. As it is entirely possible that the game that comes out after Mass Effect will be 3 times as DEI infested as Dragon Age the Veilguard was. But of course, any game where there's an issue with the art design of the game, there's usually a cultural design to back it up. And that's exactly the case with BioWare. The message sent to me also sheds light on an overall concerning atmosphere coming from within the studio. A private chat group not using company equipment involving, I'm redacting specifics, but more than 10 employees follow my content specifically, among a few other prominent YouTubers, and they discuss the content critiquing BioWare's current state and how to try and improve the working conditions from within. It's quite terrible that they have to actively hide the group chat, not even able to use company phones, but instead relying on non-company technology to avoid the company from spying and looking at the fact that these people disagree with them. Because if it was found out that they supported people like SmashJT, I'm sure they'd be gone in a matter of days. And while these brave employees all share the same desire to return to the company to direction to a player-first philosophy, they unfortunately feel stifled by the current corporate culture. And the whistleblower admitted that we are afraid to make our beliefs known around the office. And as someone who's currently attending an extreme left institution, I can confirm that it's horrifying to go out there and put out your beliefs in a place that hates your guts for disagreeing with them. So once again, I can't blame the whistleblower for not trying to do something, because this is him trying to do something. Reaching out to SmashJT is how you change the culture. Because he thankfully has a massive audience who will listen to him and acknowledge when he's saying things that are truthful, and take it to heart and react accordingly. Not to mention SmashJT saving all of us $60 at a time. But this culture in the environment is one that has now hindered the open dialogue throughout the entire BioWare organization as well, completely destroying any kind of innovative problem solving, leaving many high quality employees extremely frustrating. And another issue around it is the fact that BioWare apparently still has great talent, which is currently a beacon amid the struggles. Despite the turmoil, the whistleblower emphasized that just like any AAA game company, there really are great people at BioWare who genuinely care about making excellent games for players. Unfortunately, their efforts are often overshadowed by individuals in positions of power enforcing policies that prioritize agendas over gamers' interests. Which of course we know by the fact that Corinne Bush, someone who has zero game experience, was the one who led BioWare into making Dragon Age the Veilguard. But as a bit of a concern in regards to those actually talented people working at the company, there's also a huge elephant in the room regarding all the ongoing leaks and insider accounts from BioWare. They highlight a much larger issue at play within the entire video game industry. Talented developers are all too frequently dragged down by poor, unqualified leadership and misguided priorities. aka DEI in action. As I mentioned, Corinne Bush, someone who has very little gaming experience, is at the head of Dragon Age the Veilguard. How in the world does that happen at such a large company? It should never occur, and is absolutely the reason why Veilguard was such a flop. And in reality, a team is only as competent as its weakest member. But there's always a sliver of hope that BioWare can course correct. The reality is that the layoffs might actually affect the wrong people. Instead of targeting the incompetent higher up people, the ones who scream discrimination whenever anything is done about them, it might instead target those who are actually competent but weren't able to carry the project further enough. And as with everything else, you always fail upwards. But if that does happen, BioWare as a company is as good as dead. But to me, that's where they are right now. I have no hope of them saving themselves, and I don't think they have any intention of saving themselves, even if they had a chance to do it. Now for a look at the real Project 2025 is a look ahead, hoping for a better 2025. The email ends on a cautiously optimistic note, with the insider expressing hope that 2025 will potentially mark a return to what made gaming great. Games that made for the players, not for the ideologies. Now that's the Project 2025 I can get behind, is one that's all about gamers, and has nothing to do with actual politics. The whistleblower wrote, "Here's hoping 2025 brings games back to being about games." And it's a pretty depressing state of the industry that this is a place we ever to get at where games aren't being made for gamers. That's the only reason they should have ever been made. As a money-making device as well, but you only make money by making games for the people who want to play them, aka gamers. But the nice thing is, the market will correct itself no matter whether or not these AAA game studios decide to change. BioWare doesn't have to change for games to come back to being good, because if they don't change, they're going to go out of business and will stop polluting the well. Gaming is such a consumer-focused market that these AAA studios can be propped up for only so long before they lose the financing to make the games, and people will only support them for so long after shit release before they give up. I mean, hell, Mortal Kombat managed to push me to my breaking point. I haven't bought Chaos Reigns yet, and I likely won't until it's very cheap, which is such a weird thing for me to do because I adore Mortal Kombat as a franchise. But if they want to keep pushing us, they're more than welcome to, and we'll keep not buying their stuff until they go to business, or they can realize that we, the consumers, are the only ones that matter when it comes to making a game. Either that or your artistic endeavor. But if you're focusing on an artistic product, then you shouldn't be using such a massive budget that you need 10 million sales in 3 months to break even. The email also serves as a testament to the strong resilience and passion of those great people working behind the scenes, often under ridiculous ideological circumstances. It's clear to me that there are still plenty of talented and dedicated individuals at BioWare who really do want to see their company succeed by putting gamers first. Whether the studio can actually rise above its current self-inflicted challenges remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, times are certainly changing, hopefully for the better. And once again, another great article written by SmashJT, and it's spot on the money once more, and I'm super happy that we have a ton of these whistleblowers coming in and making these things known. I was definitely waiting to know the sales numbers of Dragon Age the Veilguard because I knew it was going to be disappointing. The 3 million is a bit higher than I was expecting. Though when you look at the Steam numbers, it's still pretty depressing, as recently it was shown that Kingdom Come Deliverance has just as many players playing the game currently as Dragon Age the Veilguard does, despite the fact that those games should be fairly analogous. But as the saying goes, you reap what you sow. If you're going to piss off the audience, you can expect them to spend their money somewhere else. But that's pretty much all I've got. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next one.